sports shows, updates, and interviews. The only way is the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles. Got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick that, relax, the team WSN.
Shout out Young Swish.
Welcome back, everybody, to State of the Jungle with Malik Wright, presented by the Right Way Sports Network. And obviously, I am not Malik Wright, but I'm joined with Logan Fulmer and Evan McPhillips. Guys, Malik Wright was a game time decision for this, and it was.
He's riding the bench.
It was
riding the pine.
It was a game time decision, and could not join the show today. But as always, guys, it's presented by the Right Way Sports Network. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe for more content. And we've got a lot to get to, guys. We had a huge game on Sunday. We've got a huge game on Monday. And I want you guys to stay tuned to the end because we've got a big time giveaway, guys. On Monday Night Football for the Commanders game, the Right Way Sports Network, we are giving away 2 tickets to the Commanders versus Bengals game. Stay tuned to the end of the show as we will be giving that out. But guys, before we get into our Chiefs recap, let's talk about some news with the Bengals first off. They went out and they signed Lawrence Guy. I want to get you guys' opinions on the signing first off.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, we just needed another body, man. Like, I think anybody that was going to be brought in was probably going to be kind of thrusted into playing time pretty soon. And I think that's kind of why they went the route with a guy like Lawrence Guy. You know, he can come in, give you some snaps immediately right away. Probably not going to provide anything crazy, but you know what you're going to get. And that's Guy. I think they went the avenue they did. They know what they're going to get with him. They know what to expect. They know the upside. They know where he's limited. They know how they can use him appropriately. They just needed a guy, man. The DT room was thin already, and it just grew thinner on Sunday. You just needed to get somebody in there that is, for lack of a better term, just a fresh body.
Yeah, like you said, you needed more depth there, and we've talked previously about him as a veteran addition to add, and I advocated then as one of the benefits being that when you have a defensive tackle room that's going to be full of a lot of these young guys who are either still trying to develop or have just come into the league or are coming back from injury and have just come back to the league, in McKinley Jackson's case, when you have all this youth, it's nice to have one of those guys who's been doing it for so long, who's been a part of so many different Patriots teams that have been successful and Baltimore teams that have been so successful. That's definitely nice to have that kind of guy in the locker room, in those guys' ear while they're having other guys do reps and kind of talking through the game with them a little bit and what he's seeing and his experience. We know other corners have talked about how nice it is to have guys like Mike Hilton and Von Bell back there in their ear. Same thing for Lawrence Guy. And he's going to be a probably better run defender than the back end of their roster, but you're not getting much as a pass rusher at all. Obviously he's going on, I think 35 this year. So yeah, you're not expecting a whole lot as a pass rusher, but as a run defender, he knows what he can be big in the way and knows what he's doing, is technically sound, and can help hopefully develop with some of the young guys. So I think it is a really good signing in that sense.
So you discussed the signing. I think it's only right that we talk about the Kansas City Chiefs versus Cincinnati Bengals game. There was a lot of talk online, guys. A lot of talk. We talked about this obviously on our post-game show. We talked about this on the morning show. You guys can catch here on the YouTube channel every single morning. And there was a lot of talk, both good and both bad. And I just want to get you guys' first overall opinions. You know, first off, what was your guys' biggest takeaways from the game? And should we be overreacting to the Bengals being 0-2, or are they going to be fine? Because to be honest with you guys, I saw a lot of talk saying, you know, the Bengals still aren't that team. The Bengals are still 0-2. And I think we all kind of share a different opinion, right? When I look at the Bengals in this 0-2 start, I'm confident in this team. And I think this is a different 0-2 start. And this game, I am much more confident coming out of this game than I was week 1. So overall, are people overreacting to the game against the Chiefs? And what was you guys' takeaways from that game?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think for me, you know, I'm a little conflicted because at the end of the day, starting 0-2 is never a good thing. You know, there's no way to shake it. You never want to start 0-2. Unfortunately, that's what we just are used to at this point. 0-2 is 0-2, which is why, you turn the other side of the leaf. It's a little bit normal for us, which sucks. But at the end of the day, we've been 0-2 in 5 of the last 6 seasons.
Yep.
And we've been to AFC Championship games. We've made the playoffs. We've been to the Super Bowl. With those same circumstances. So there's not too much reason to panic. And again, we kind of talked about the schedule is going to really help the Bengals. We would hope it would come off to a better start, but there's still some very winnable games coming up. And there was a lot of good things that did come away from this Kansas City Chiefs game. I think, we kind of talked about it a little bit after week 1, this whole 12 personnel, the 2 tight end sets have worked phenomenally so far. And that's still without a guy like T. Higgins getting onto the field. The run game's going to flow a little better. You can move from, personnel to personnel a little bit better. You can go from run to pass better with this 12 personnel sets. They're kind of finding their groove. Mike Gesicki is kind of finding his own. Eric All is getting on the field more and more. Things are slowly starting to come together, and I think that's the best sign from last week. Yes, it sucks we didn't come away with the win. Yes, we still made plenty of mistakes. Yes, we should have won the game, but we still made some mistakes. We're still ironing things out, but the Chiefs are still good at the end of the day. There's plenty of good in the game. Plenty. 0-2 sucks. No matter where you put it. I don't, I'm not too worried about how it affects the the rest of the season outlook, but I feel a lot better about being 0-2 than I did after being 0-1, which is weird, but still.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is you don't have to panic right now because the Ravens are also dropping games,
Yes.
right? And despite the Steelers winning their games by scoring a total of 19 points in 2 games or something along those lines, that's not really concerning. And obviously the Browns have their own hurdles to kind of conquer before they're ready to really kind of ascend to the top of the AFC North. So with that in mind, the 0-2 start doesn't hurt as much. Having such an easy schedule coming up, it really helps.
Yeah.
Helps you to get your footing back, helps you to build some positive momentum. And we've seen them make these kind of runs in late September, October, November, all the time, right? In the last couple of seasons. There is a lot of good to take away from the game. You talked about the use of 12 personnel, the use of actually running the ball in the under center, the pistol, to try and lend itself to the play action being taken a little bit more seriously, which opened up some other alternatives as well. Taking the short game with the tight ends is a way to extend kind of the run game, get some yards after catch with Gesicki. That was really good. Obviously, there were some unfortunate instances with drops. Most glaringly Trent Irwin, which we can talk about that conversation a little bit later as well. But you did see Jermaine Burton get in, run the vertical routes that we asked for, right? You saw, hey, they attacked and responded appropriately when the Chiefs blitzed them. Hey, they did the motion, the 12 personnel things we wanted them to do, right? They left light boxes for the Chiefs, inviting them to run the ball, contained Patrick Mahomes as best they could, forced him to play from the pocket and tried to make him make mistakes. They did all of the things that we wanted them to do to try and achieve victory. It was just really unfortunate that as a result of the mistakes from drops, mistakes from penalties, mistakes in just those instances where you might have the perfect play call, but then you don't have the protection to hold up in that instance, right? All of that kind of added up to a loss, even though I think, like I talked about before, and like we've talked about, the Patriots game was so putrid. You just wanted to see competent football and more of what something that resembled Bengals football was going to be. And that absolutely was what you saw, holding Pat Mahomes, holding Travis Kelce. Like we talked about, make Xavier Worthy beat you. Yeah, Rashee Rice got his one, but Travis Kelce did not beat you up. Patrick Mahomes did not dice you up. You really had the chance to win the game. You followed that script that we kind of laid out as a path to victory. Now, you couldn't get that final step, and that's really unfortunate. But again, it doesn't erase all the good and all the positives that you can take for this team. Again, as a little bit more rust comes off, and that's Zach Taylor's play calling. That's their play design, incorporating more things that are working. And then also Joe Burrow too, just speeding up his process, getting more confident in taking some of these deep shots, these tight window throws, run game, still finding its balance to make sure that you're not going too far into the Chase Brown or the Zach Moss realm, but kind of staying close to that 50-50, 60-40, but still finding success in that game, right? Staying efficient. That's what you got to do. And seeing guys like Mike Gesicki, Andre Yoshivas, just all these guys kind of show that they did deserve to be on the field, and that the hype from the camp and from preseason was warranted. That was really reassuring, especially in a game where the Chiefs were doing so much to try and take away Jamar Chase.
Completely. And once again, we've got a lot of people in the chat and dropping down your questions. We're going to get to all you guys' questions. We've got some people discussing and saying, like, at the end of the day, it was a loss. And we had some people in the morning show. Our guy Bando Burner was defending the Bengals, saying, at the end of the day, still, while it was a loss, the Bengals were a better team. It's our job to discuss and to bring the Bengals fans the facts. And let's talk about the facts, right? The Bengals were a better football team, in my opinion, on Sunday night against the Chiefs. They lost. But I still believe they were the better football team. And I believe that they looked better, right? The entire game. And we can discuss, and I do want to discuss some of the things such as Trey Hendrickson being a top 10 and being one of the most underrated edge rushers in the NFL. Looking at the tight ends, Mike Gesicki stepping up and the rest of this group stepping up when T. Higgins was out, Andre Yoshiva stepping up. And I think it's important, right? We discuss the context behind it. Go look at the fourth quarter. The Bengals had this game in the hands this entire game, right? The Chiefs looked good. The Chiefs rushing game, Pacheco rushed for 90-something yards. He looked good. Carson Steele, their rushing game was dominating the Bengals at times. But overall, we head into the fourth quarter. The Joe Burrow fumble was kind of the thing that took it over the edge, right? You go look at, I don't know. And once again, if you guys are, Bengals fans and rewatch that game and watch that game, let us know what you guys think, because in my opinion, they look like the better team. So I want you guys real quick to discuss what was the turning point in that game. And do you guys agree with the sentiment that the Bengals on Sunday night were the better team?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty confident to say that the Bengals played much better than the Kansas City Chiefs did on Sunday. But I think you hit it on the head with a turning point. It was that Joe Burrow fumble. And I think, the Bengals did a great job of forcing turnovers all night long. 3, I believe, and another one wiped off the board. That's awesome, but none of them just felt as deflating as the Joe Burrow one did. At the end of the day, the points are still points after it. When you get a turnover and you score off of it, that momentum is such a real thing, especially when you're at home. And the margin of error for an away team is so slim. The margin of away team when you're in Arrowhead playing the Chiefs is even slimmer. When watching it live, I just assumed he was down just the way it happened. I wasn't even freaking out about it. And then they showed the replay and I was like, oh, well, shit. Here we are. Like that really just counted. But I think that's exactly where the game shifted. I think the Bengals felt like they were, I don't want to say necessarily in control, but they felt like they were fine the whole game. We couldn't finish in the red zone all the times, which was a huge issue. But again, it's a step up from week 1 where we couldn't even get there. We still couldn't finish there as often as we did, but still we need to continue. We're getting there. There's so many positives, but I think it's just that anytime a defense scores, man, it's the momentum is such a real thing, especially when you're at home in such a big game like that. And I just think that's exactly where the game flipped.
And one sec before we get to Evan, we got, Joshua North Carolina. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe for all our content. He said it's 2024. Moral victories don't fly anymore. And this is where I personally disagree. And yes, you can say the statement, maybe moral victories don't agree. And we discussed this on the morning show, but nobody is going to remember this game come playoff time. And I think that's what my biggest takeaway is, because you have a lot of Chiefs fans, a lot of people saying, well, the loss is the only thing that matters. If the Bengals don't get into the playoffs, it matters, obviously, because this is the game that potentially could have caused it. But they're not going to remember this game being a loss come playoff time. And I think that's where the biggest, disagreement with fans with this takeaway is this game. Yes, it was a loss and it's 0-2. And we'll get to some of these questions about how this affects the future in a little bit. But this game as a takeaway, I believe it helped the Bengals a ton. Evan, what were your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I think just to touch on that notion, I think there's 2 different schools of thought, right?
Yeah.
Which is like in the now, the reality, the just factual part of it. Yes, absolutely. The moral victory does not count for anything, right? The moral victory does not get you the bye week at the end of the season when you go into the playoffs, right? But I think it is different when you're framing it in the sense of, what does this game, even if the end result was not what you want, what kind of insights can we discern and project forward? Because if you were asking based on the Patriots game, how you could project this team forward, well, all you had were miscues on offense, missed tackles, getting run all over, just absolutely looking putrid from every aspect of the game, to where everybody's struggling with even just standard ball security, to now you had the Chiefs game where you held the Chiefs out of the red zone, one of the best red zone teams in the NFL. You stopped them multiple times, forced turnovers on one of the most difficult quarterbacks to play that people are constantly trying to figure out how to even slow down, because he just sleepwalks to 250 yards and 2 touchdowns every single week. That's all very good things. Seeing
Yeah.
the things that we asked for, right? We talked in the first week. Patriots, oh my God, it's so static. Everything is just 11 personnel or just spread out wide and everybody's isolated. There were more bunch sets. There were more stacks. There were more pre-snap motions for Joe Burrow to have extra tells to check in and out of what he sees pre-snap to get him those. There were the play action easy buttons that we've been asking for.
That's
It was the
awesome.
12 personnel
Mm.
to get Eric all
Yeah.
on the field and get him involved. And Mike Gesicki's now getting involved after the catch. And now, oh, Trenton Irwin is not separating as well. Okay, well, here comes Jermaine Burton for a deep shot. Like finding ways to slowly get him involved in the offense. All of these things were very good things. Seeing Mike Hilton move around a little bit and come off the field while other people fill in the slot. So you can figure out who can play there next year, later this season. If Mike Hilton goes down, when he maybe isn't with the team anymore. You got a lot of valuable information from this game, despite the loss coming at the end of it. So I think to just say we can glean nothing, or that the moral victory of, hey, at least they look like a good football team and they're trending in the right direction and they're doing the right things. I think that's a very bad approach to have, because it's very results oriented, right? Like, because you can have the perfect process and sometimes get a bad result because things don't quite work out. It would be wrong of us to, in that instance, be like, scrap the whole thing because we didn't get the right process. No.
Yes.
Same thing with drafting, right? Like, hey, sometimes we have a bad class, but if we do it this way, we end up winning more often than not. And that's really what you're trying to achieve, is good process over just pure results.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like you said, you're going to have your idea on how you want to do things, but when it doesn't work, you shouldn't just completely right ship all the time. And, if we didn't win the game, that doesn't mean everything we did in that game sucked.
Right.
And especially from like a coaching perspective, yes, I want to take as many good things from the game as I can get. Whether we ran this play perfectly, this play worked good, we just didn't catch the ball. This stem, this blitz worked great. Patrick Mahomes just made a good read. Whatever it is, there's still things you can take away that can, that you can use in the future that will help you win games, that will help you have better results. So yes, obviously 0-2 is 0-2. If you want to say there's no moral victories, that's fine. I don't disagree with anybody that says that.
In the scoreboard, in the box score, absolutely.
But you can still take away things that are positive that you can use in the future. And if you can't, then that's when I think things go really wrong.
Completely. And we got a lot of comments about the Commanders game. We're going to get to that. And as well as guys, if you guys didn't hear, we've got a huge giveaway. Commanders versus Bengals. 2 tickets we're giving away at the end of the show. Make sure you guys stay tuned. But we got a comment and from Thomas Strong. We appreciate everybody commenting. He said, my only statement is KC played bad and still won. Do you think that they will play that bad on offense again? And we know their defense will be the same. So my question to you guys is, do you guys think that this was the Chiefs? Like, how bad did you guys think it was the Chiefs offense looking versus the Bengals defense making them look? Because to be honest, I don't think the Chiefs offense looked terrible. I don't think they looked like, okay, they were just, off their game. I think that it was honestly a lot. The Bengals defense was just making life like very slow, and they look like a different offense than they normally do. What do you guys' overall sentiment on the Chiefs offense, how they looked?
I think at the end of the day, we held Patrick Mahomes to 7 completions in front of the line of scrimmage. Like that's absurd. Whether that was
Was it really 7?
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah.
He only, I think
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't think it was many at all. He only completed 18 passes. Obviously the run game was going. That was as expected. I think everybody and their mother knew that was coming. Bengals just had a good game plan for them. They always have, and they always will, it seems like. And yes, Mahomes still made a couple great plays here and there. But, you can still say, I hate these kind of questions because you can still say the inverse. Is Joe Burrow going to fumble the ball every time we play them? Is Mike Gesicki going to drop a wide open first down, right before the fumble?
You can have multiple third down penalties that extend drives.
You
or
can say
the
so
game.
many things like that. So, yes, I'm sure the Chiefs will play better the next time we play them. I would expect them to. But also, the Bengals might just play better too. The Bengals might not have these mistakes.
Or injuries to the defensive line, to where you have better pass rushers. You have a Miles Murphy, a Chris Jenkins, a healthy Sheldon Rankins, and BJ Hill that aren't going out there and fighting hamstrings and cramps the whole game because they know there's nobody behind them except for Zach Carter and Jay Tufele. And I think it's also worth remembering that Pat Mahomes only threw for 1 touchdown in each of the Bengals' last 2 meetings. So it's not like he was just out there just straight up dominating and he was the unstoppable force. Like the Bengals largely have had good plans for slowing him down and stopping him in the last couple of meetings. They seem to have that kind of figured out a little bit, and not saying where you have the Chiefs figured out to where they're not going to score, 20, 25, 28 points, but they're not just going to have the offensive explosion that sometimes they used to have when they would go up 14, 20 points, and suddenly they're out of reach. You can't get them. The inevitability factor is not as high as I feel like it used to be,
Yeah.
especially for teams like Tom Brady, right? You always felt like this is inevitable. There's no way they don't get this. There's enough cracks in the facade, especially with a talented starting running back going down, with a rookie wide receiver who's still trying to figure things out. Talking about distractions with contract issues, how about we talk about, oh, that's a big effect on Jamar Chase. Okay, how about a court case where you endangered yourself and others, right? Like there's other distractions for other teams too. Like Chris Jones is amazing and a game wrecker. Does Chris Jones start to slow down because he's over the hill on turning 30 and now is being relied upon all the time to just be what Trey Hendrickson is for the Bengals defensive line, right? So there's questions for them too. It's not like there's sterling silver and gold all over that place. Like Bolton can be taken advantage in coverage right now at linebacker, and they did that plenty of times, utilizing the tight ends, trying to attack those spots because Trent McDuffie looked freaking great, man. Like, so
awesome.
They found other ways to attack. So there are holes in this Kansas City team. They're not unstoppable, and I think the Bengals showed a lot of that, to where, like you said, if they clean up just 1-2 mistakes here or there, you absolutely have a very, very competitive game that swings the other way.
Completely. And we got a lot of questions. We're going to get to some of these, after we discuss the Commanders. People talking about Duke Tobin and some other things. But one of the things, guys, we're always going to keep it real with you guys, and let's have the conversation, right? Trent Irwin, or Jermaine Burton, right? And it doesn't have to be, you have to pick one or the other, but heading into week 3, not saying what the Bengals are going to do, but what would you guys do, right? Because looking at this game, and I'm of the belief, and I know obviously Malik's not on the show, but he's a huge proponent of playing Jermaine Burton a lot more. This dude needs to be on the field now. And I can understand the logic, sure. At the end of the day, this dude, what other rookie is coming in right now and on one of their first 2 targets in an NFL game, catching a 47-yard go ball? Like, the dude is a playmaker, and at the end of the day, the dude made a play, and you got to play him more. So what's the argument for the overall wide receiver room? Because I do think, Andre Yoshivas, he looked phenomenal, and I think he has his role in this offense, and he's a red zone monster. Like, you go back, look at last year, him and Burrow have that connection. But let's talk about Trent Irwin and Jermaine Burton. What would you guys do, and how much would you guys play these guys?
Mind if I jump in on this one real quick?
I have a feeling we're going to agree pretty heavily.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure there's a lot of overlap in Bengals fans' minds right now. So look, all right, when it comes to Trent Irwin, first we got to say, like, he has been a really good receiver in the NFL, a very reliable receiver. He's been a quality receiver for the majority of his NFL career, if not all of it up to this point. Okay, so I want to just go ahead and get that out of the way. But the cliff might have come. This might be it, to where, not saying he doesn't belong in the league, but he is your emergency kind of fill-in guy that you need to just take a couple snaps a game. Not going to be a primary target getter on your offense, which right now he is 4th on the team in targets behind Gesicki, Jamar Chase, and Yoshivas with 7 targets. On those 7 targets, he's produced 2 catches for 11 yards.
Wait. Say that one more time.
7 targets, 2 catches, 11 yards.
And let me just say this also, we're not bashing Trent Irwin. Trent Irwin
that's why I started that way. All right. Again, we're talking about the Trent Irwin of now. I understand in his career, he's done this, that, the other thing. That's great. Again, he's your sure-handed veteran to get on there or get on the field and do the things you need him to do, right? Well, when you're dropping passes that literally hit you in the face, that's not doing what you need to do, right? So if that's happening, and on top of that, you can't separate. According to NGS, average separation, 1.8 yards of average separation, 80th out of 81 wide receivers. PFF receiving grade, 49.6, 96th out of 100 receivers. Yards per route run, 0.25, 98th out of 100 receivers. That's not good enough. That's not going to cut it. You're not separating. You're not converting the targets that do come to you. And when you are getting targeted, you're dropping passes, or you're not able to convert, or you're not able to fight through the contact because the guys are draped all over you because you're struggling to do this stuff. And it's, again, if you're asking him to do like different curls and hitches and spot routes, okay, that's different. But right now, sending Trent Irwin on drags is literally taking away the safety option for the Burrow and the Bengals. And if you have him running drags while you've got the other guys running deep, and now you have no underneath outlet when teams are clouding over top, other guys would run away from that. Jermaine Burton is running away from that. Charlie Jones, Andre Yoshivas, even Mike Gesicki is running away from that, right?
Drew Sample might run
Like
away from it.
that's what I'm saying. So like again, this is not about bashing Trenton Irwin, but and again, small sample size right now. It's only been 2 games, but based on the 2 games we have, Trenton Irwin has been a bottom 3, 4, 5 wide receiver in all aspects and so many metrics. It's just 1.4 yards per target is not going to do it. So
No.
that's
No.
where I stand right now.
Yeah. Again, I said it before you started talking. There's not much. I don't think people disagree on it at this point. Trent Irwin was fun. He did what he was supposed to do for a long time, but there's just simply no need for him anymore. There's just not. Like you said, if literally almost anybody else was on the roster running these drags, these things, they would have more success. Like it's. I hate like talking like this because I hate sounding so negative about it, but there are people on practice squads that could probably do a better job than he's doing right now. And I'm telling you, the stuff he's being asked to do right now isn't very difficult. You know, it's not like they're asking him just to go out there, win one-on-one, win these jump balls, run, just go out there and just moss people all day long. They're asking to do some very simple things, and we still can't get the job done. At the end of the day, the Bengals, nobody has ever been scared of Trent Irwin. And that's why he had some success because, he maybe was a little more juiced up, a little more athletic at these times, or just whatever it is. He played better football back then. But when a guy who was already a fringe roster player starts to lose a step or two, you notice it rapidly. And you also notice it when the replacements come in and make the plays that they do. There's just no reason for Trent Irwin to be around anymore. Like
no one wants to tell Steve Nash that it's time to hang it up, right? But like eventually everybody ages out. Even the Hall of Fame players, everybody like who tries to keep it going because they love the game, they love the camaraderie, they can still contribute. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that team might be like the Carolina Panthers and not the 3rd wide receiver for the Bengals.
That throws the ball a lot.
Yes. And I think that's the point. Listen, and for everybody, discussing Trent Irwin is a fine depth piece. But my biggest gripe with this is I'm playing Jamar over him. I'm playing Yoshivas over him. And I sure as hell at this point playing Jermaine Burton over him. I'm sorry. And I can understand, sure, the coaching staff's argument is he needs to be brought up to speed. This is how we bring rookies up to speed. All I can say is from my perspective, and I think a lot of Bengals fans would agree with this, and I know obviously Malik's discussed this a lot, Jermaine Burton needs to see the field now. And that's my argument with Trent Irwin. So I still honestly got some more things to discuss about this game real quick. Evan, I don't know if you've got any stats about Trey Hendrickson, but I just want to discuss for literally 2 minutes.
Let me see. This is great. Stupid.
He's awesome.
Like, goddamn. Like, holy shit. One-man wrecking ball.
Bro, he literally got somebody benched in the 4th quarter of a
that was
game-winning
crazy.
drive.
I looked up and I was like, why is Wanya Morris in? Wait a second. Did they bench Kingsley Suamati?
They was like, get the hell out of here, dude. Like, one too many holding calls.
Tough luck.
It was wild.
And I think that's what, I don't know. I think all Bengals fans kind of agree, but I'm sorry. The first 2 games you can say, yes, he played against the Patriots O-line. He played against a rookie. I'm sorry. Respect's got to be shown where respect is shown. And he single-handedly is dominated on the Bengals defensive line. You go watch the game. Don't even, you can look at the stats too, but just strictly look at the game. This dude is being held. He has accounted for, I think, 3 major penalties last game or between both 2 games. And if the Bengals did not have Trey Hendrickson right now, this pass rush would look very, very, very rough. And we got some people discussing, saying Drew Sample. Drew Sample is good, and I think Drew Sample has his place. And I think the Bengals are, at least in this game, did a very good job of utilizing the tight ends. And I think a guy like Mike Gesicki especially is going to – I don't think that was a flash in the pan. I don't think so. We discussed this, many times on the show, and he showed out in a big way. And I think as long as Jamar Chase is on the field, the tight ends are going to continue to have a ton of success for the Bengals. Was there any other takeaways you guys had for the game? Overall, just looking at the team, I think we can obviously discuss in one thing. Let's talk about the offensive line before we switch over. Because I saw a lot of people discussing the Bengals offensive line and still nitpicking. I think Cordell Volson is, one of the guys that can be discussed. But all in all, it feels good to have an offensive line that's not being the major, root of your losses. Go look at the Patriots game. Wasn't the reason why the Bengals lost. Go look at the Chiefs game. It wasn't the reason why they lost. So overall, what's your thoughts on how the offensive line is 2 weeks into it?
I think, after this last Chiefs game, yes, Cordell Volson graded out terribly, and he played pretty terribly. That's going to have a lot of, Chris Jones effect to it too. Like that's
Right.
the kind of player he is. And, when you have somebody in the interior like that, that's just going to be who teams decide to pick on. Why would you pick on Alex Kappa, who's had his fair share of struggles already? Ted Karras, why would you pick on those guys when you can just go pick on Cordell Volson? That doesn't mean he's bad, but it just means any person who's decided that team's going to pick on is probably going to struggle that game because that's just their game plan. That's what they're focusing on. If that's what they identify as a spot they want to attack, they're going to have stuff constantly running your way to confuse you. And if, that's just how it is. And that's how a team with the way that the Bengals line is currently constructed, a lot of teams are going to continue to come after Cordell Volson. Yes, he should be able to perform a lot better when it's not Chris Jones across from him, but still, he's okay. He's a solid player. He is what he is. We all know what he is at this point. I don't expect him to get overly better. I don't expect him just to randomly get so much worse than he is. Cordell Volson is an average football player, and that's perfectly acceptable when you have as much talent as we do on the line currently.
Yeah, I'm not like a Cordell Volson homer defender by any means.
No.
I have always said like, hey, he's a mid-round pick from a small-time school, like who has outperformed expectations probably. And there's a reason that you generally become that small school mid-round guy. It's because you don't have the traits to end up being a tremendous high-end athlete, top 10 at your position guy. And that's, like you said, completely fine. He's going to be average most of the time, sometimes a little better, sometimes a little worse. This was one of those rough games that he gets when he plays guys like Aaron Donald or Chris Jones. But to the point that you said, so does guard number 12, 14, 8, 7. Everybody struggles against these really, really crazy, freaky guys who can align anywhere and attack your leverage how they want to, or have specific, unique athletic or length or reach advantages against you. So he did the best he could. But overall, 14 pressures on 44 pass block snaps for the offensive line. I feel like that's much better than it has been. Sure, you'd like it to be a little bit lower, but again, we're nitpicking here. This is the goal of this offensive line with such a pass-heavy team, is to be a top 15 unit, right? And so far, I think they're achieving that.
Completely. And we've got one last thing I want to discuss about this game before we switch over to Commanders talk. I'm excited to actually discuss this Monday Night Football game. I think there's a lot of interesting matchups, and I think there's a lot of good storylines. Once again, everybody, if you guys can simply like this video, subscribe to our channel. We've got so much content coming out. We've got our live show Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. We've got our post-game recaps after every single Bengals show. We've got a ton of content on here, so make sure you guys stay tuned. Ja'Marr Chase, I think, is the discussion I want to have real quick. And there's two parts to this. And so this is a two-sided question. First off, let me read off a tweet. Ja'Marr Chase is the definition of regressing. He has regressed ever since his rookie season, and he is not a top 5 or even close to a top 10 wide receiver right now. So obviously you're going to have a lot of slander on the internet. So I'm not reading too much into that. But Ja'Marr Chase has only, caught less than 100 yards so far. So right now, Ja'Marr Chase, do you guys think he is he regressing? And also, do you buy into the fact that, he was frustrated on the field? You can visibly tell. And do you buy into that affecting his play at all?
Oh, man. I think at the end of the day, Ja'Marr Chase has not gotten any worse since he's gotten into the National Football League. I don't understand how anybody can say that. Sure, again, if you're going to pull up his stats, yes, his numbers are getting worse. Yes, he's playing less games. Yes, Joe Burrow has missed times. Of course, his numbers are probably going to get a little bit worse. But when you have a rookie come into the league and just instantly become one of the best receivers in the league, you better believe people are going to start figuring out how the hell I need to stop you. I don't even stop you, slow you down, contain you. Do whatever I possibly can to make you not beat us. And unfortunately, for the Bengals, especially this year right now, if you're the New England Patriots, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, why are you not ever – there should never be a snap where you have Ja'Marr Chase one-on-one ever.
Yep.
Never. Like, why would you? We just sat here again. Not to be mean. We just sat here and talked about Trent Irwin and how he was utterly useless. So if he's on the field, why am I not going to just quadruple team a dude when I have Trent Irwin and Drew Sample and and Zach Moss in the backfield on these other sides? Like, nobody's going to sit there and be like, oh shit, I'm really worried about what's going on over here. I need to leave Ja'Marr Chase one-on-one or whatever it is. That's just, there's so many things that have changed since he's come into the league that that matter. Jamar Chase is awesome.
Yes.
You know, we're going to see when T. Higgins comes back, things are going to open up a little bit. He's not going to be able to get bracketed as much. He's going to have more opportunity. These 12 personnels, the scheme's getting a little more creative. At first, for so long, it was Jamar Chase, go win down the field. I'm going to throw you the ball, and that's what it is. Now, cover 2, cover 3, all this stuff where it's so much harder to throw the ball down the field. The Bengals haven't had that creativity to really take advantage of that. So, yes, numbers are going to dwindle here and there. But now things are kind of feel like they're kind of starting to come together. We're figuring out some things with the 12 personnel. The offense is getting a little more creative. T. Higgins is hopefully going to be back. Things are starting to come, and Jamar Chase is going to be great. And let's be honest, if he went from a 1,500-yard receiver to a 1,200-yard receiver, I don't think anybody should really give a shit. Yeah. That's awesome. Regardless, I have no worries about Jamar Chase in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I think the other thing is you're talking about a small sample in which the first game you did not run a lot of offensive plays, right? Because you just could not sustain drives to where naturally when you don't have a lot of completions and you don't have a lot of offensive plays, the raw total stats are not going to look as good. I think the other thing to be considered is, like you said, the Patriots and the Chiefs went out of their way to constantly put a safety over the top of Jamar to basically do all that you could to basically double team him as often as possible. And that's easier to do when you have Trent Irwin, who is struggling to separate from people, who, again, he's got 39 snaps in the slot right now. The advantage of the slot is that you either get matched up on a linebacker and you can take advantage of that using the superior athletic skills that you should have over a linebacker, or you get a two-way release. You're off the line of scrimmage, so you're not getting pressed. All of these give you an advantage over the defender. And if, despite having a two-way go, despite having free releases, despite having a matchup against a linebacker, you're still struggling to separate. Yeah. When the Chiefs can go, hey, we can dedicate these resources to Jamar and these resources to the other boundary, and hey, we can leave a linebacker on Trent Irwin because he can't separate from an athletic linebacker, then you give them so much freedom because they can't hurt you. They can't threaten you. And even if he does get that catch, is he running away from him, right? It's the lesser of all the evils compared to what else is on the field, right? So I don't think it's necessarily a function of Jamar Chase, and I don't think it's something that will persist either as they continue to get healthy, as they continue to see that Mike Gesicki and Eric All and Andre Yoshivas are able to take care of their opportunities that do come their way. Obviously, Yoshivas has done a great job in the red zone. So is Mike Gesicki. Gesicki's starting to make some plays after the catch, which is really, really welcome sight. Again, small sample stuff with Yoshi where he hasn't caught many of the targets that have come his way through varying degrees of difficulty or has had bad numbers on them because of, like, let's say the screen call on 4th and 3 that ended up being 3 offensive players and 4 defenders. That's not stuff that's his fault. That is context that can be added to his stats to make it say, hey, it's not as bad as it does seem. And I think he is coming along and I think he is getting more comfortable. But if you can get T back, that's fantastic. If you can get Jermaine Burton just on the field for another 10, 15 snaps a game, I think that could really alleviate a lot of pressure.
And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I get really frustrated when I watch, and this is something, obviously, Logan, your football coach, and Evan, you watch a ton of film. Like, when I watch these other teams with these star players, it infuriates me how easy they get the ball in their hands, right? You go look at CD Lamb. You go look at what the Philadelphia Eagles have done with even Devontae Smith this year with Kellen Moore as their offense coordinator. You go look at Tyreek Hill. You go look at so many of these other wide receivers, and it infuriates me how quickly and easily they get them the ball. So when I look at the Bengals, I think that would be my one pitch to them. Say, hey, get him the ball early. Like when you go look at last year, and it's kind of funny, we're coming up on week 3, and you go look at week 3, what happened with the Bengals last year. Jamar Chase had 12 receptions for, I believe, 150 yards against the Rams last week. It's week 3 and they're facing the Commanders. So I would say start off the game and just manufacture some touches, end arounds, get him a quick screen, easy slant, get him some easy touches in this offense. And that's what I would really suggest to the Bengals.
Yeah. I think, something they tried it a few times. A lot of it was for some decoy. They took a shot out of it once. They did bring Jamar Chase in the backfield a few times.
And I like that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think there's going to be some more stuff like that as we especially as we continue to get healthier. Because when you can put T out there, and then on the other side, you can still run Yoshi, you can still run Burton once he gets out there, and now you can mix Jamar Chase in the backfield in these 2-back looks. You know, they tried a B gap wheel with Jamar Chase, which is everybody's new favorite play design,
Right.
and it didn't work. You let Chiefs guarded it well, but I think the Bengals I think they're kind of noticing, hey, let's move this guy around. Let's just get a little creative with him. And, you know, this whole stack thing they have going on, which is fantastic. Such a good concept. They're trying to get him involved a little bit more than it feels like they ever have in the easy stuff and like in true play designs for him. And, you know, it's going to continue to evolve. Hopefully we even started into the game. They kept hitting him underneath. And then what did they do? The Chiefs jumped him. We tried to hit Yoshi on the backside and we just couldn't connect. So I think things are starting to come in. That goes back to what we said earlier. There's not going to be many times where Yoshi drops that ball or Joe delivers it a little bit behind. These things that are coming together, a lot of new things in offense this year so far. And it's going to take a little bit to get that all down. It's, you know, when a lot of it is going to be Jamar Chase playing the slot, moving around. Lots of good still. A lot of creativity with Jamar coming. And I hope and pray it continues.
Completely. Timbo Slice said Zach is a terrible head coach. I just wanted to mention this. He is not a terrible head coach. And let's just stop by saying that you can maybe nitpick and we can obviously discuss his play calling. We can discuss his faults, but go look at what players say about him, right? Go look at his resume. This dude brought, you know, the team to the Super Bowl. And right now they've got a great culture, whatever we want to say about it. They've got a great culture in the locker room. And even some of Jamar's comments, right? He said, or I believe it was Jamar Jermaine after the game said, you know, it's sometimes nice, you know, just going back and hearing what coach has to say always brings us, you know, level and even keel. So he's not a terrible head coach. So let's just not say
There's
that.
different aspects. I think you could argue like his efficacy as a play caller or as a play designer
could be terrible.
That's a different conversation.
Yes, completely.
As this like CEO, head coach overall, I think there's been plenty to advocate for him as being a plus in that category.
Completely. And let's switch it over to the Commanders. We have a good question, and this is how I want to start it off, right? If the Bengals lose to the Commanders, is the season over, right? They go down 0-3, and let me just say, ever since 1983, there has been 6 teams to make the playoffs after going 0-3. So if my math is correct, that's 17. That is about 30. That's about 40 years, 40 to 45 years. 6 teams have made the playoffs. That's after starting 0-3. And none have made it since they expanded the season to 18 games. So let me just say, I do believe that if the stats are right, if they go down 0-3 and you lose at home to the Commanders, it would be, you're putting yourself as a major disadvantage. So let's start off with that question. If they lose on Monday, is the season over?
I mean, I don't want to say yes, obviously, because they're plenty talented. They can rattle off 10 wins whenever. But like you said, it's just so hard to put yourself in an 0-3 hole. Now you have to play 70% win percentage football the rest of the way. Like that's tough to do. And you know, but if there's people that can do it, the Bengals can certainly do it. Yes, I don't want to sit here and say the season's going to be over because I don't think that's necessarily true. But again, numbers don't always lie. 0-3 is again, we talked about at the beginning, no moral victories. 0-3 is 0-3. 0-2 is 0-2. A loss is a loss, no matter how you want to shake it. I don't think the season will be over, but every game has damn near become win or go home at that point. And that's a lot of stress. That's a lot of stress for the team that would have to play 14, 15 more games. Like it's asking a whole lot.
You're on life support for sure. That's
barely hanging on.
You're barely hanging on, but you're definitely panicking because there's some severe problems with the team inherently if you are dropping multiple games to teams like the Patriots, like the Commanders. No offense, we're just calling it like it is. But again, to the credit of, if there were a team that could come back from 0-3, it would probably be this one, because we've seen them rattle off, like you said, 10 plus wins before when everybody gets healthy. And hopefully, like you said, Chris Jenkins, McKinley Jackson, getting your defensive rotation healthy. Hopefully that can stabilize things a little bit more on defense, because the secondary has done a really good job overall, aside from tackling. And then the offense looked a lot better. And if they look incrementally better every single week, that's going to be an advantage. But again, if you drop this one to the Commanders, you do have the Panthers, the Giants, the Raiders, the Steelers, the Chargers, the Titans, the Broncos. So there's 7 games right there that you're probably favored by at least 3 or more.
But you'd have to win every single one of them.
Right.
You
But
can't
yeah,
slip
that's
up.
the thing. Yeah, is you would have to win those, and then you'd have to split your other games within your division or with the Eagles or with the Cowboys, right? So yes, there's an avenue to getting 9-10 wins, even if you drop to 0-3. But yeah, that's obviously a wall that you don't want to have your back against.
And let's dive into the Commanders, right? We'll discuss. We got some people discussing their secondary. We'll get there. Let's start with their quarterback, Jaden Daniels, right? This is a team, and let me just say this, and I think, obviously Malik discussed this on the post game for the Bengals. Let's not sleep on Jaden Daniels in this offense, please. If Jacoby Brissett could run all over the Cincinnati Bengals, damn right Jaden Daniels can. And Jaden Daniels, and we watched a decent amount of him, right? We watched him at Arizona State, went to watch him at LSU, and we've seen 2 games of full footage of him so far in the NFL. And there are a lot of positives with Jaden Daniels. Let me just say this. You got to spy him. This dude, and when I tell you, my best assessment of him and so far this offense is it is a ton of quick passes behind the line of scrimmage. We're talking Terry McLaurin has maybe 1 to 2 deep shots every single game, but most of their passes are at the line of scrimmage or within 5 yards. So expect a ton of quick passes, which is going to put pressure on the cornerbacks, right? You can't be giving up, quick slants all the time because that's what is going to eat away at you. And Jaden Daniels so far in his NFL career has been very accurate, and it goes to show what type of style offense they're running. But to put it simply, Daniels is a quarterback. He's got 1 read, 2 reads, and he's running the damn ball. That's what's happened so far. And you'll start to see, and especially everybody watching on Monday night, he just backpedals. He doesn't have a great feel for the pocket so far in the NFL. So you guys are going to see a ton of backpedaling, and then you're going to see him jolt out, outside of the pocket and look to run the ball, which concerns me about the Bengals, right? One of our biggest issues with them has been, go look at their edge rushers. Sam Hubbard, many times last year, got beat. Brock Purdy beat them to the outside. Patrick Mahomes beat them to the outside. So that's my biggest concern. Jaden Daniels really breaking this game open. And this dude, it would not shock me if he went out there and he rushed for 100 yards.
Yeah.
And the Commanders are trying to get him to pass the ball, a lot more. So my biggest thing for the Bengals would be spy him. And I really wouldn't leave, one-on-one on the receivers, cornerbacks, because he does have a beautiful deep ball. So overall, what's your guys' thoughts on Jaden Daniels, and what's that matchup like with the Bengals?
I think for me, the toughest part about the Commanders in general is, I don't think we've really seen what the Commanders really want to do. And what I mean by that is, I think Jaden Daniels has 25 rushing attempts in 2 games.
Yeah.
I promise you, they have not called 25 QB runs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very, whether it's like Daniel said, 1, 2 reads, I'm getting out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the play, or is that what he's doing? Is that I don't want to read the right, I don't want to read the left, I don't want to read high to low, whatever it is he scrambling because he's not comfortable? Is he scrambling because that's what he's told to do? There's so many kind of question marks with how this. We kind of always talk about the Bengals. I don't know what this Commander's identity is right now, Jaden Daniels,
Mm-hmm.
and that's part of having a rookie quarterback. They're trying to figure that out. They're trying to figure it all out right now, but that doesn't there's a good chance the Commanders come out here Monday night and just look completely different. Their style of offense is completely different because they're trying to figure out what the hell they want to do, what situations they want to put Jaden Daniels in. We just talked about, moral victories and everything. They could have been taking good things from week 1, from week 2, where they may have lost or won, whatever it is, and implementing it into a week 3 game plan. They're trying to figure out what the hell they can do to make Jaden Daniels comfortable, make him play good, make him play confident, and just put points on the board. That might not be anything we've seen in week 1 or week 2.
And they're playing with house money.
That's the thing that worries me about it. This offense, they're going to be able to run the ball. Well, they have good running backs. They have some good talent on that offense in general. But there's just so much unknown about this Commanders team right now, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And that's the only thing that kind of scares me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to be clear in saying that Jaden Daniels has a lot of potential, is very talented, is still very much a rookie in the NFL. And when you're a rookie in the NFL, whether that's corner, linebacker, or offensive line, you are thrown in the water, sink or swim, and you are just trying to keep your head above water. And he's very much doing that, where his first game, you could see he felt jittery. He felt sped up. He talked about all the scrambles he had and all the rush attempts he had. A lot of that was from either abandoning the reads, scanning through his progression way too quick, feeling pressure, bailing on clean pockets, sometimes. And that's all well and good. It's going to be part of the process. He did seem to take a step forward a little bit in week 2. After
Was the
getting some of
Giants,
that
though.
live, yeah, it was the Giants. That's the thing. Yeah. But also it is important to also remember 15 of his 22 completions past the line of scrimmage have been between the numbers. So if you can clog up the center of that field, give a lot of cover 1, cover 3, middle of field, closed looks, helps you against the run for the quarterback. So you can stack the box, get more numbers in there. Also helps you take away some of those over the middle completions, make him push the ball to the outside where he's not as comfortable trying to complete those passes, make him get to those progressions, try and contain him as much like you did, maintaining lane integrity and gap integrity with your defensive line, like you did with Pat Mahomes, try and contain them there. He is still a rookie who's making rookie mistakes. He's got 2 fumbles. He's got a turnover-worthy throw. Yeah. He's got no big-time throws or passing touchdowns yet. You need to make him beat you as a passer. It's not where he's comfortable. And again, there's a lot of potential. But right now, his leading receivers on his team are both Zach Ertz and Austin Eckler, who are the best friends of the quarterback, running back and tight end for the checkdowns, right? And that's where a lot of this has been. I think he has where's my tab? I got too many tabs open. He's got 18 completions behind the line of scrimmage right now.
Crazy.
Like we were talking about. And yes, Austin Eckler is really good with that. He has an explosive play of 20 plus yards as a receiver in both the first 2 games. Is not their primary runner. That's Brian Robinson now, who's been doing very well as well.
Yeah.
But again, it's going to come down to, hey, they're going to be doing a lot of short game stuff with Zach Ertz, with Austin Eckler. Terry McLaurin is only averaging 4.9 yards a catch right now. He's got like 8 catches for 39 yards. It's weird. It's a lot of short check down stuff that's either going after the catch with the occasional deep play. He's actually done very well against the blitz. He's got 9.5 yards per attempt on average against the blitz, chucking it downfield. A lot of that came from the Giants as he started to get more comfortable, started to kind of feel what they were going to do. I think Lou is going to be a little bit better at disguising things and kind of making you guess where the pressure is coming from. So I think it'll be a lot different for him that way. But yeah, if you can find a way to just get pressure with 4, maintain, make them read out, make them play quarterback, change the picture on him pre and post snap, I feel like you're going to be able to confuse him a lot early in his NFL career with where he is right now. He's not as good of a talent as he is. He's not one of those cerebral quarterbacks who's looking at the snap, everything pre-snap and diagnosing and figuring out. He's not of the Joe Burrow, of the Dak Prescott ilk yet. He could get there maybe one day, but right now he is not that guy.
And that's what concerns me, to be honest. When you look at the Bengals, that's the stuff that's killed them. Like you mentioned, we'll get to this, when we discuss our bets for the game, but the tight end, the running back, the screen game, and that's what really concerns me. And I promise you guys, when we're discussing this game, and just kind of remember this when you guys are watching the game on Monday night, we are going to see Jaden Daniels scramble a ton. And that's what I'm really confident, to be honest, in him running the ball a lot. The Giants game was different. The way that the Giants were playing him, they did have a spy on him at times. And this is what concerns me about him is he ran, and then at the second half, he got absolutely obliterated on one of his rushes, came out of the game for 2 snaps, and then was back in. But that's what concerns me. We have a good question, and I want to discuss 2 players really quickly. We should have discussed them for the Chiefs part, but Akeem Davis Gaither, he's a guy who showed out against the Kansas City Chiefs. And Lou had some comments. He said, that's a guy who's going to be on my staff, at some point in his career. And I think that, honestly, that's some of the best praise I've ever heard for a player, right? That shows how much he trusts him. So do you guys think that he's going to play the spy role? And overall, just going back, what was your thoughts on how good he's playing?
I think this whole Akeem Davis Gaither thing has kind of been weird to me. I think everybody's kind of excited about it when we drafted him. And then he never really got on the field. He made some plays when he did. There's always the potential there. There's always the potential to do so many different things, just to be a really good football player. And he never really played. He hits free agency. And we're like, we all kind of expected him just to walk. And all of a sudden he's back on a 1-year deal. And you're like, oh, cool. Maybe the interest wasn't there, whatever. And then he's named a captain. And you're like, oh, well, that's kind of weird. 1-year deal. Now Lou's talking about how he wants him on his staff. He's making plays against Patrick Mahomes. It's been a weird couple months with the whole ADG thought process. But regardless, he's been playing very good football. And that's really all that matters. But it's just weird to see, like, it feels like the trust in him is gaining and just trending in the upwards direction. But like, We signed a 1-year deal. We never played him before. It's like, what the hell happened to make that switch? So regardless, I don't care what it is. If he's going to continue to play the way he is, he needs to continue to be on the field. I know Lou mixed up his fronts for this first time that really allowed him to get on the field. Maybe that's what we see with the struggling run defense some more, keeping him out there because he is a very athletic guy. We can put him in coverage against against other teams, or Irwins, for lack of a better term, and just know he can hold their own. He's a good football player, man. He's just never really been on the field, and it's no surprise to me that when he's on the field, he's making plays.
Yeah, and we've got a question from Alice. It said, "Where's Malik?" We discussed this. He was a game time decision, guys. He was, and when I tell you, I'm not gonna say there was some tampering involved, but he was a game time decision last night. He's out with an illness right now, but he turned to questionable and then back to a game time decision. He really wanted to be here, but once again, he's gonna be on the post game show as always, and we're just trying to do our best to kind of carry the torch as the backups and
the practice squad elevation.
The practice squad elevations, exactly. But the last thing I want to discuss, just going back to the game, I want to discuss Daijhan Anthony real quick. And I think it's just important that, we use our platform for what we truly believe in. Listen, I think it's a lot of bullshit that we're seeing on social media. And I think it's only right that we discuss the facts. The fact of the matter is Daijhan Anthony is a 7th round rookie from, Ole Miss, and he went to some other places. For this dude to be getting snaps, first off, in a big time game in week 1, also, that shows the defense coordinator Lou Anarumo trusts him, right? So if your defense coordinator trusts him, that should put some trust in ourselves as fans as well in him. Daijhan Anthony didn't play a ton of snaps in that game as well. He was on for situational reasons, and his job was to cover the tight end. That was really his main job. And week 1, he locked up Hunter Henry. And I think week 3, I think it's a beautiful matchup. And I promise you guys, I would not be shocked to see him out there on 3rd downs against the tight end, Zach Ertz. But what I think is really crucial, and I think we discussed real quick, is, listen, he made, you could say he made a mistake. It was a bang, bang play. And for people to say this dude should be cut, this dude shouldn't be on the roster, this dude should not be playing, is complete bullshit. I'm sorry. This dude, as a 7th round rookie, he came into training camp and he earned himself a roster spot. That is, first off, difficult to do, to make the 53-man roster. And I think, yes, you can have the opinion. Everybody is entitled to their opinion. Maybe he shouldn't be out there on the game-ending play. That can be an opinion, sure. But to say this dude should be cut, to say this dude shouldn't be in the NFL is complete bullshit. And I promise you guys, he is going to turn it around. I promise you, he's going to be a big-time player for the Bengals for years to come. And I promise you, even this week, I would not be shocked to see him make a big-time play against Zach Ertz. But overall, what was your guys' thoughts on Daijhan?
Yeah, I think, everybody was kind of surprised about the pick in general when we came. And then I myself dug in a lot more into him. And there was a lot to like. And it seems like the moment he's come into camp, they were always hyping him up. There are always good things to say about him. He was working with, the first and second teams very early on in camp. But at the end of the day, you can't pick and choose, when to have different opinions about something. We've sat up here and talked about so many different times about how we don't play our young guys. We don't know what we have. We don't know this. We don't know that. So we have a specialized role for him, for young guys. And that's how you get your young guys on the field. Give them a specialized role early in the career. Let them run with it and let them see where it goes. Let them learn from it. Let you learn more about them. The same thing with offensive tackles. You can get offensive tackles feet wet, making them the jumbo tight end, whatever it is. Yep. Get their feet wet that way. Receivers, get them in on special teams, or just working them in on necessarily plays that aren't necessarily for them. You can get guys involved in more ways just to get them on the field to truly see what you have. And that's what Daijhan Anthony has been doing. And look at Lou the past 3 years. Trey Flowers, tight end specialist. Dax Hill, last year, tight end specialist. This year, apparently it's going to be Daijhan Anthony, tight end specialist. That's a role in Lou Anarumo's defense that is pretty unique to just the NFL in general, to have that specialized role. And he's always going to do somebody that he trusts and that has, that's their one role. They're not going to go out there and be a boundary corner, the backup boundary corner. That's why a guy like Jordan Battle doesn't see the field in those specific scenarios, because he wants this guy to be that person the whole year, no ifs, ands, buts about it. He wants it to be Daijhan Anthony. He wanted it to be Trey Flowers. Whatever the hell it is, he has a role. He created a role for a person he trusts, and that's how you build these young guys. Yes, he makes mistakes. That's going to happen. He is a 7th round rookie. He is an older rookie. He's done so many different things throughout his college career. But again, he's a rookie. He's trusted. You have to trust why he's trusted in Lou,
Mhm.
and he's going to continue to make plays, man. They're rookies. Everybody's going to make mistakes. I love, kind of seeing how some of the older guys have responded to him and some of the stuff, that's come out that they've all shared with him. It's great. It sucks. It happens. It sucks that it was him,
Yep.
whatever it is. But at the end of the day, you guys were going to hate anybody who touched him on that play.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter who the hell it was. It just so happened to be
Right.
a 7th-round rookie that majority of the fan base has no clue about his talents at all because that's just how it is.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Poor timing on that.
A little yawn action.
Yeah, no, long. I agree. It's unfortunate that was kind of a lot of fans' introduction to him. That's rough.
Yeah.
And I don't think he necessarily made a bad play. I think like we say you got there like a half a quarter of a second early, maybe like. Otherwise, it's a spectacular play, and I think even then it could have maybe not been called. I know a lot of people have said that it's because of the Chiefs. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think the bigger argument there would be is if it was the offensive player jumping through the defensive player's back, they wouldn't have called it defensive pass interference, or they wouldn't have called it pass interference in that instance, right? I think that's the biggest thing, but I really had a bigger problem with the flag of like the illegal contact earlier.
The one of him,
up against the side or up there, with Travis Kelce. That was the one that I was like, I don't know about that one.
So the one he was holding around the hips, right?
Yeah,
that was the one that was ridiculous in my opinion.
Which is usually they wait for you to extend or they wait to see a tug of the grab of the jersey because everybody kind of wraps their hand around. It's like escorting the girl to the dance, right? You got your arm around her. You're not grabbing hard. You're not like creepy. You just got one hand gently right there, right? Like that's kind of how a lot of guys play defensive back, right? Is they get that feel on there, and then they either take their hands off to make the play, or so they don't see that, or they give the old jersey tug before you can see it. And there was none of that. That was the thing, is it was all just standard defensive coverage. Yeah. So that was the one that I really had problems with. But again, I'm not holding any of that against him. I think anybody could have been in that position, and if you watch it full speed instead of watching it slowed down 400 times.
It looks a whole hell of a lot different.
It looks a lot different. Like, that's when it's like, wow, truly just like an instant later would have been the perfect play. So like, that's the difference. So I'm not trying to be too hard on a rookie who's overall shown out. I'm just more disappointed than the one Jordan battle snap.
Yep.
That was just weird.
That was what we talked about being worried about when Von Bell came back. We were happy for some stability and some veteran leadership.
Like
and that was
great either.
And that was the thing with when they drafted Daijhan Anthony, and they had Tyson Anderson already on the roster, and it's like you have so many of these safeties already, and you had Dax Hill, who is still safety at that point, and then you got Geno Stoner. That's like, okay, like what happens to Jordan Battle now, because you just added 3 safeties, and Jordan Battle, who looked good in his action last year, who stabilized your safety room as a rookie, now is playing 1 snap in one of the biggest games of the year. Like, that's where I'm like, man, you telling me you couldn't find any other way to get him on the field?
I think
I just don't believe.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that all off season, and I think this
is what I was worried about.
And I kind of expected it to shift a little bit this way. I get why he maybe didn't play too much against the Patriots. Week 1, like where I said, get the veterans in there, but it's a more downhill team. He we can load the box with Von Bell. It's his strong tools. Right. But again, when you play a team like the Chiefs, that's when you expected maybe more safeties, maybe more people that can make athletic plays and out there. And I don't know. It's just. I'm just interested to see what the breaking point is now to get him on the field, because what has to go wrong, or what's going to change, who's going to lose what job, what role for it to really change. And that's the part where I'm like, at this point, I'm like, I can't pinpoint that, because it doesn't seem like they're going to take Von Bell off the field. Maybe they'll take Geno off a little bit, but then it's like,
I hope that they can find space for both him and DJ Turner to continue to get on the field. Again, maybe that is like they have started to do, cycling Mike Hilton a little bit here and there. But you do have to kind of develop your young guys a little bit. It's not enough to get second team reps throughout the season and trust people to develop in that sense, right? You got to give them opportunity. And I think both of these guys have proven and deserved and worked hard through this and have all had good plays. So that's where it's it's not even like every time you put them out there, they're missing tackles. Like, God damn, how long do we try to make Jordan Evans work before we were like, this is
How
not
long
going
to try to make Trey
right.
work?
So it's like, yeah, like you give the leash to Jordan, Jordan Battle. All right, you got a short leash, and he goes out there and balls, and it's like, all right, well, yeah, you're not going to play anyways. And it's like, how many terrible players did they just roll out there over the last couple of years just because they liked them and they were a favorite? And it's like, God bless. Like, I just hate relegating our young, talented guys. And it's a good problem to have in some instances, but you have to have the right plan in place. You have to be able to consider how you want to develop them, how you want to deploy them, what games you can do that. And maybe this stretch of games with the Giants, the Panthers, the Raiders, maybe this is the game you do that.
And I would just hope, and that's my biggest issue with this, is I would hate for this to be a thing of like, let's say, knock on wood, obviously somebody gets injured and he comes in, he balls out. Like what? Like that's my issue. Why would it have to take that when you already know that's what's going to come? So for all the people asking questions, I don't think we necessarily know the reason why he's not playing, but we're all on the same side that he should just be getting snaps regardless. Same thing with DJ Turner, right? Interception. Should add that interception.
He made some good plays.
And so let's get to our predictions for the game. Then we'll get to our giveaway for the Commanders and Bengals game. So overall, I want you guys to think of a bold prediction. But overall, what's you guys' prediction for Monday Night Football, Commanders versus Bengals? Also, if you guys are watching, you guys can comment down your predictions down below, and we'll see if anybody gets it spot on. But score predictions and how do you think the game goes? Evan, we'll start with you.
God, score prediction, I don't know.
You think it's higher scoring or lower scoring?
I'll say Commanders 14, Bengals 24.
Okay.
And I will also say for my bold prediction, Jamar Chase gets over 100 yards and a touchdown this week. Chris Godwin. I love Chris. Mike Evans. I love Mike. These guys are getting older. They're not the spring chickens they once were, right? And they absolutely cooked this secondary. Now, to their credit, they were the Commanders were trying to be very aggressive in their first week to compensate for the lack of talent in their secondary.
It's bad.
It
also,
went
their
poorly.
secondary.
It went. Yeah, no, they're the Emmanuel Forbes, their first round pick from last year that many Bengals fans are familiar with, is not really even playing much for them. That's how bad things are going for them in that room. But against the Giants, they dialed back that aggression a little bit, kept more guys in coverage, let their defensive line and their linebackers try and generate pressure, and they were more successful in that vein. I would expect them to do a similar approach to the Bengals, especially being a more pass-heavy team than either the Giants or, oh God, who did they play week one? The Buccaneers.
Yep.
Yeah, and the Buccaneers are kind of a surprising passing team, and that makes sense with the weapons that they do have. They are a good time. I love Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Love these guys. Happy to see Mike is still in a great situation. But these guys are older. They're less athletic than Jamar Chase, and I think against a less talented secondary, against a team that's going to be throwing at a higher rate than anyone who's not named the Chiefs, and maybe these days even more than the Chiefs right now, I definitely think there's going to be opportunity for Jamar to explode. I think after the frustration after last week, everything going on, I think Joe wants to get opportunities to get him the ball. I think they're going to have more confidence and there's less to lose, right? Yeah. It feels like there was a lot on the line for the Chiefs game. They had to get right. They had to put on a decent performance. They had to try and win the game. I feel like a lot of this is going to be, maybe this is the game that Joe Burrow comes out and starts ripping those tight window throws again and starts with being willing to say, hey, Yoshavas, you got one-on-one. Jamar's double covered. They got the safety shading to his side. Let's chuck it up to you. Let's give you the one-on-ones, the back shoulders that we give T. Higgins 20, 25 yards downfield all the time, right? Let's give you some of these whole shot for cover 2, cover 3 looks. Let's go ahead and get you guys involved. And I think there's going to be real opportunity to do that for this Washington secondary.
And you also discussed the wide receivers. There's a player that is very similar to Jamar Chase that popped off last week, 10 receptions, 128 yards, Malik Neighbors. And he dropped the potentially game-winning reception. If Malik Neighbors can go out there, and obviously it's different offenses and everything, he had 128 yards. This secondary is bad.
To be clear, they said, Malik Neighbors, you're a rookie. We like you. We respect you, but we're not going to respect you the way we would respect you. Right. Yeah, they did a lot more one-on-one looks and one-on-one. I would expect them to do a lot more of the double coverage stuff with Jamar, but your point overall stands that even if you do have over-the-top help with Jabbar, one-on-one with Jabbar, he's going to be constantly getting these 10, 12, 15, 20-yard chunk plays, and that's what I expect.
And even if it's not Jamar, the overall sentiment is, and at least this is what I'm taking away, and then Logan obviously give you a prediction for the game, is this is as much of a Joe Burrow game as there possibly can be. And I'm sorry, you go look at what Baker did, 287, 4 tutties. Daniel Jones had 2 tutties, 187. This is it. This is the game. If we're discussing, all right, Joe Burrow, 300 plus, 3 touchdowns, 14 plus point win. This is the game. And that's overall. We'll get to some of our bets, but this secondary, I think, and even their pass rush left a lot to be desired, especially in their last game against the Giants. They had many opportunities to really take advantage of the Giants. But Logan, what's your prediction for the game?
Yeah, you said a lot of things I was going to say. I'm going to go 31-17 with the Bengals. And, in my weekly bull predictions article right here, Tiberson, I'd said Joe Burrow, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. There's no reason, like you just said, there's no reason for this Washington defense to be able to stop anything. You just said Daniel Jones, 2 passing touchdowns, Baker Mayfield, nearly 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. This Bengals offense.
And that game was out of hand early to where they kind of took the foot off the gas a little bit.
There's almost no reason for this Bengals passing game and just offense in general not to get rolling. Mm-hmm. And if we're here next Wednesday or you guys at the post-game show and it's not like we're not feeling good about the offense, then I might be a little bit concerned. This secondary is bad. The pass rush shouldn't be as bad as it's been so far, but it's been pretty bad. Linebacker, that Commanders team on defense is not they've had a very sneakily good defense for a number of years now. That is not the case anymore.
It's not the Ryan Kerrigan Commanders anymore.
No, it's just the secondary was real bad, top to bottom. Linebacker, like I said, everything about there is just pretty bad. There's no excuse for this Bengals offense not to just go out there and just get what they want whenever they want it. Yes, we might miss some throws. Yes, we might have some drops or, shoestring tackles here and there, but they should be looking comfortable. They should feel in control, and they should just look like the better unit. There's no reason for that not to happen. That's why I go 31-17. The offense should roll. Again, the Commanders, they might put up some points early maybe, and then once it gets out of hand, then they'll kind of get in a few more. I like 31-17 Bengals.
Completely. And so I'll give my prediction that we'll head over to Rissa, producer, on the 1s and 2s. She's going to give her prediction as well. I think we see a lot of scoring in this game. I'd be curious, to one of my favorite plays will be the over 34-20. I think the Bengals come out on top on Monday night. I think we see a huge game for this Bengals passing offense. And I think we get to a point in this game where, and this is what concerns me about props wise, I think we could see in the fourth quarter this be a real big Chase Brown and Zach Moss game in the fourth quarter. I think the Bengals this would be the game for them to just pound the rock as the game gets out of hand. But once again, do not take this team lightly. I think that there is a lot of possibility, especially if the Commanders get out early, right? And that's my concern is going to be Brian Robinson. You can't let him get in a flow early. We saw what he did to the Giants. He looked like, I think he had 120, 125 rushing yards, and he's a hard runner, man. He is a tough runner, and he keeps the same sentiment of you go from Stevenson to Pacheco to Brian Robinson. I think Robinson is a guy where he's looking to make a big time statement on prime time to put himself up in that elite category. But overall, my biggest concerns for this game would be Commanders starting out strong with the rushing game. And please, for the love of God, you have to control Jaden Daniels, because that's my biggest concern. Is I think there's a real possibility this dude rips off 3 20-plus yard rushes, and it's not like we've not seen that against the Bengals. So that would be my biggest concern.
That's the issue with the running game this time around is they can't just like the Patriots and the Chiefs. They can just hand the ball off, and we're not worried about it until Jaden Daniels pulls one and he's gone.
Like
that is a massive difference. That is a massive difference that we haven't had to worry about the last 2 weeks.
So Marissa, give your prediction. Who do you got, and give us a score prediction.
Yeah, so I guess I'm going to have to go 28-17. I do agree that it's going to be a high-scoring game.
Yeah.
But obviously Bengals, I think, edge it out here. And then bold prediction, I'm going to go with Dax Hill with a sack. We saw it last year on the Ring of Honor game against the Rams. He got that sack against Matthew Stafford. So I think he comes off as Jaden Daniels is rushing, I think he comes downhill and is able to get a sack.
Beautiful. All right. There we go. We got Marissa's prediction. Riss, before we get to the questions, and we'll do our best bets, but let's do we've got a giveaway to do, everybody. A huge giveaway. Commanders versus the Bengals. We are giving away 2 tickets. Once again, this is presented by the Right Way Sports Network. You guys can check all of our links down in the description, as well as follow these guys and everybody, you know, that helps out with the show. But guys, can I get a drum roll? Once again, we're giving 2 giveaway tickets to the game. We already got them ready. Give me a little bit more of a drum roll. Come on.
We were too early.
And the winner, 2 tickets, is we got Houday KSH20 on Twitter. I believe that is our guy, Leroy Jenkins. And all we asked, once again, this was posted to Twitter. We asked to follow some accounts, the TWSN account, as well as the Sitdown YouTube channel. And you are receiving 2 tickets for the Commanders versus Bengals game. So congrats to you, man. This is presented by the Right Way Sports Network, and we appreciate you.
Enjoy it.
All we ask, you just simply go to our, you know, we'll reach out to you with your information. Then we'll get that going. But that's the winner for the giveaway. And guys, let's get to real quick our best bets for the game. And then we'll get to some questions and head out of here. Best bets. Let me just start this off by saying, let me start it off with the Commanders prop. Give me Jaden Daniels rushing yards over.
Yeah.
This is honestly one of the easiest bets I've seen. You go look at what Patrick Mahomes did. Shout out to Evan. You got that. His over. I don't know what his rush attempts was, but he hit his over rushing yards.
His rushing yards was 20.5. He had 22 by halftime.
Crushed that. And you go look at what Jacoby Brissett did. I believe Jacoby had like at least 30.
30, yeah. I think it was like 32 or 36.
And Jaden Daniels is at 45. I think Jaden Daniels rushes for 80, around that. Once again, this isn't going to be, you know, necessarily designed, but this dude is too explosive. And I just think there's a world where even late in the game, right? It's not like he's going to get benched.
He's had 11 scrambles in 2 weeks. So you
Mhm.
figure if he has 5 scrambles and maybe another 2 or 3 redesigned rush attempts on 8 rush attempts,
Mhm.
he can easily get 40 yards.
And that's something that Vegas is kind of telling us, right? Vegas, go look at his rush attempts. And this is, Vegas rarely is wrong, right? Vegas is smart. Their rush attempts for him is 9.5. And my logic is if he gets 9 rush attempts, he's getting 50 yards. I think he at least rushes for 5 yards a pop against the Bengals. But if I'm looking at the Bengals, I'm sorry, I'm looking at these passing yards and passing touchdowns. Joe Burrow to have over 1.5 passing touchdowns, in my opinion, minus 150 is about as sure of a bet you're going to get in week 3. And I would definitely be looking, if you're looking for a sprinkle, I think Joe Burrow 300 plus passing yards. Once again, this is the only way this really doesn't hit is if they just get out to a massive lead right away and they just run the clock. So for me, if I'm doing Joe Burrow 300 plus passing yards, I'd also be looking at some of the rushing props for Chase Brown or even Zach Moss. But I do think this could be a big Chase Brown game, you know, late in the game. Just get him some more touches because he's a guy, we didn't really discuss him a lot, but he's explosive. And yes, they're rushing with Zach Moss more than Chase Brown, but he needs more touches. So I like Joe Burrow 300 plus passing yards, and I would be looking at a little sprinkle of Chase Brown rushing yards. But is there anything that you guys like, even matchups wise, for this game? Evan, you got anything?
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit before, man. The leading receivers on this team, which I tried to look at 3 different books and I didn't see any receiving props for anybody but Jamar Chase.
Yeah,
I think there's probably still some lineup questions that they're still figuring out. But Austin Eckler, receiving yards. I talked about he's had a play of 20 plus receiving yards in each of the last 2 weeks. He's their leading receiver right now, as well as Zach Ertz. I would be looking both of their receiving yard total over. The Bengals also struggle generally to cover running backs and tight ends, especially out of the backfield, especially on the more athletic, elusive guys. And Eckler definitely fits that mold. And then Brian Robinson, you talked about him before. Looking at the over on his rushing yards, the Bengals have already been yielding over 4 yards per carry to opposing running backs who are starters. He is already in top 5 right now in yards per attempt. He's top 5 in runs of 15 plus yards. So he's already getting explosive plays. He's already averaging a high yards per attempt. And the Bengals are now dealing with Sheldon Rankins and BJ Hill having injuries as well. So if it's just Jay Tufele and Lawrence Guy and Sam Hubbard fills in, like that's going to make an already weak defense be maybe just a little bit weaker. And so I'm willing to take a look at Brian Robinson over on rushing yards as well.
Yeah, you know, I kind of want to bring up the Austin Eckler thing too. I don't know what his reception line is necessarily at, but
I
I also like that as whenever it comes out, it's going to be hard for it to be at something that
that I wouldn't take.
That isn't pretty appealing.
Right.
And then, I think you hinted at a little bit earlier, just some more Jamar Chase touchdown, man. It just feels like, that
It's due.
frustration.
You're due.
It's coming. Even regardless of the matchup or anything, everything that's transpired so far, it feels like it's coming. Then you add the matchup and you add the prime time. It's just, there's so many things. The LSU quarterback connection. It's going to be a whole LSU day. Jamar Chase finds the end zone.
And one last one. Once again, this is obviously the State of the Jungle presented by the Right Way Sports Network. Zach Ertz's receptions. Zach Ertz had 4 receptions in week 2. He had 3 receptions in week 1. It's at 2.5.
Is it like minus 130?
Minus 140.
Minus
so you're getting
140,
minus
okay.
140 in
It's
my
just pretty
opinion.
juiced, but yeah, I might look at the yards.
Yeah.
You can even bump it up.
I might look at the yards.
And
yeah.
you can even, once again, his over 40 plus passing or receiving yards for Zach Ertz is plus 190.
You said
40.
40.
40
he's
for
had
Zach Ertz.
99 in his first 2 games.
Yep. So that's, if you're looking at anything
90.
Commanders wise, I'd be looking Zach Ertz. I'd be looking a lot of the short game because I think the Bengals, once again, this could be a game that gets out of hand quick, and they're going to be looking just to pass the hell out of the ball. So that's something I'd be looking at. And Jamar Chase's line, just for everybody who wants to know, receptions is 6.5, receiving yards is 79.5. I think those are pretty on point for where he's done so far this season. But Mike Gesicki's at 28.5 with 2.5 receptions. So if you guys like what you've seen out of Mike Gesicki, I think you can 28.5. But
I would be careful. I'm going to take advantage of Malik not being here to kind of cool. Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Comes back,
Here's
man.
the thing.
but
Mike Gesicki got the 3rd most snaps among tight ends last week.
Yep.
3rd. So, and again, I know he's a pseudo wide receiver, so you got him out there for, the reps that you don't want Trent Irwin taking, right? Yeah, that's basically he's a slot receiver, right? So the only hesitation I would have is that you're relying on the big play for that because he does get some of those 8, 6, 7 yard looks. He's got to get 3 or 4 catches to kind of exceed that number there. And with them going to a little bit more of the 12 personnel, again, we got small samples where they didn't do it in week 1 very often. They did it a lot in week 2. Do they end up somewhere in the middle?
Completely. And my only thing, and this is what I do like Mike Gesicki, I look at what he's done, and this is my, the balance between looking at what the Bengals are doing and what they should. In week 2, and I think, it was actually between both 2 weeks, he was the 2nd most targeted player on his most, his routes run. So that's what gives me confidence in it. I think that it's going to be the thing that will the Bengals put him on the field. And if they're smart, if they know what's right in the passing game, they should just put him on the field after what you saw in week 2. And that's why I struggle to see them not playing him after. What do you have? 80-some yards in week 2?
The other thing is the coverage issues extend past the secondary, right? Because Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner, that Bobby Wagner, are fielding the cut, which Bobby Wagner is still a great run defender, still very smart. I think he has 8 defensive stops on 11 tackles, which is crazy. But in coverage, you can absolutely take advantage of him. In coverage, you can absolutely take advantage of Frankie Louvu, who is a solid linebacker, but is not a spectacular one. So there is a lot of opportunity. Like you said, I think you have sometimes there's those easy blow up spots, right? Where you look at a quarterback and you look at a receiver and they shred cover 3. And then they're going up against like Gus Bradley, who runs more cover 3 than anybody else. And even will just never, ever adjust out of anything else. And you're like, this seems like a really big blow up spot. Or you get that team that just can't cover tight ends and suddenly they're playing George Kittle that week, right? Like you're like, okay, this is an easy blow up spot. That's what this feels like for the Bengals, for a team that passes the ball more than anything, that has a receiver and a quarterback who are frustrated with not being able to get on the same page and connect right now. To have such consistent and struggles and communication, especially in a young and unproven secondary, a linebacker room that is aging or unathletic, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for the Bengals weapons to take advantage of this game.
Completely. And we'll get to some of these questions, Riss, and then we'll get out of here. We have been answering some of these questions. So, Riss, take it away from the questions.
Yeah, so first off, getting to it, I remember there is a question in here from TWSN's own Will Herman. He asked, how much blame should Duke Tobin get for failing to address the interior defensive line? It seems like teams are exploiting the weakness a lot.
I think Evan starts off.
I think it's really important for us to remember. Think of the 2017 Saints draft class, right? That they knocked it out of the park, right? Had, I think it was like 4 or 5 all pros in, the first 7 rounds or whatever. It was something crazy. The Seahawks, 2012, right?
Mhm.
But then those guys didn't draft amazing again, right? So there is a crapshoot level of this, right? You had multiple years of the Seahawks getting guys like LJ Collier that just didn't work out, right? It's not an exact science as much as we want to try and study it and prove it to be that. So I don't necessarily fault Duke Tobin for that, because all you can do is draft these guys that you try to fit best with the scheme that you have, but they do have to be developed by the coaches, played by the coaches. Maybe sometimes even the coaches don't love guys and don't give them the fair shake or the same kind of opportunity or coaching intensive care that they would to other guys that they want to see succeed. These are all things that happen. And sometimes guys just aren't what they were billed to be. Sometimes you just bust on a guy who you have a 50-50 shot on in the draft, right? So I don't, if you just didn't do anything at the defensive spot, sure, I could see that. But when you went out and you signed DJ Reader for big money in free agency to plug that middle, when you drafted Zach Carter and you had Jay Tufele and you drafted Chris Jenkins, like, sure, these things haven't necessarily worked out yet. And sure, like Zach Carter was a miss, 100%. Absolutely. But I don't think there's like an absence of resources that has been dedicated to the defensive tackle spot necessarily, because I think they might have tried to upgrade from BJ Hill if when they traded for him, he didn't start playing so well.
Yeah.
And then they gave him a $10 million a year contract because that's what he was playing like, was a solid fill-in starter defensive tackle. So I think there wasn't maybe as much urgency to go acquire a bunch of outside talent when they felt like, hey, we have DJ Reader, we have BJ Hill, we have Sam Hubbard, we have Trey Hendrickson. That's a lot of money that we've already dedicated. What more do you want us to do, right? You're for backup defensive tackles. So that's where I come from and saying, hey, all you can do is draft the players, but sometimes they bust and sometimes they just don't develop, and that's more on coaching than anything else.
It's way too early to say that, right? Or not with you, but I'm saying that Duke Tobin did a terrible job addressing it, just because I think the Chris Jenkins thing is the one that I would be hanging my hat on right now. And saying,
they both get hurt when you draft 2 and they both get hurt. That you feel that.
Yes. And that's where, because the easy comparison, this is the one that kind of kills me. We discussed this in, the State of the Jungle War rooms, obviously. And I think, Malik was, a fan of the idea. We drafted him a ton. Tavondre Sweat, and this is the one I look at what he's doing with the Titans and just their overall scheme. He did get drafted early in the 2nd round, but a guy like that is like, holy shit. Like, if the Bengals had a Tavondre Sweat right now, which leads me to Chris Jenkins, I think we got to see him on the field first. And if we see Chris Jenkins on the field, see McKinley Jackson on the field, and if those guys don't pan out, we can have a different conversation. But as of right now, they got hurt. Nobody was expecting them to get hurt. So I will say that this isn't on Duke Tobin yet, but there is some serious issues right now at the Bengals defensive line spot, and it's going to plague them for the next couple weeks at least.
I think it's also hard for us to divorce, because we're not in the room. We don't know. It's hard for us to divorce which picks were heavily influenced by Mike Brown et al. Because it is very much a groupthink organization compared to other places that give a lot of the power, the blame, and the responsibility to their GM or director of operations or whatever you want to call them. So again, I don't think that he's just neglected the defensive tackles position. If you have, let's say you lose 3 or 4 starters on the offensive line, now you're like, oh, did we neglect the offensive? Well, no, you're on your 9th and 10th offensive lineman. Like, it's tough when you're on defensive tackle 5, 6, and 7 right now, because your first 4 are all hurt. Like, that's just, it fucking sucks, guys. Like, I talked about it in the offseason all the time when I was talking mainly about offensive line was, hey, you don't get through back-to-back seasons with no injuries to an entire unit like that. And oftentimes the injuries are not spread out. It's not 5 injuries that kill your defense. It's 2 injuries to the same position group. That's what kills your defense. That's where you start to really be scraping the bottom of the barrel. And to have 3, 4 injuries all at the same position in a spot you were already thin, I think that just makes us feel the problem more than when everybody's healthy, when everything is status quo, that's the way it is.
Completely. And Riss, let's get to 2 more questions.
Perfect. So we got another one here from Allison Decker saying, why can't we establish a run game where we can sustain 8 to 9 minute drives to play keep away from Mahomes, Allen, or Lamar? Is this a scheme issue or the coaches refusing to commit consistently?
I think I think it's it plays in a number of different things week in and week out. I think this last week, we had a turnover in a big moment. These last couple of weeks in general, we've had the ball with the opportunity to go in the game or put the game away, and we failed. And I don't want to say a lot of that is because of the run, but the Bengals just are never going to be a team that just sits back there and commits to the run. They're just not, and that's because that's not their strength. Yes, I think they're slowly figuring out some ways to do it a little bit better. But that's just the first time we really kind of see them make an effort and see things look a lot different in the run game to really change things. Maybe that's because of the running backs we have now. Maybe it's because of the tight ends we have now. Maybe it's because of the play caller, the offensive coordinator up there, whatever it is. It's never been the motto here. I think it's a lot of the times we got Joe Burrow, let's put the ball in his hands, let's go win a football game. And the margin of error is like when you miss on a pass, it feels a lot worse because then now you're second and long. Now you didn't get anything on. You run for 1 yard and then you incomplete on second down. Shit, now it's 3rd and 9, and that's your bread and butter. Throwing the football. It's just so easy to fall behind the sticks. I think it just goes back to not being efficient in the ground game. And I think we're trying to figure that out. The tight ends are working more, like I've said. We're just trying to establish we've never been a team that's been able to do it. And there's a number of reasons why, whether it's the opponent, the coaching staff, the running backs, the tight ends, the line at a time. It's always been a different reason. I don't think it's ever really been the same reason. But we're trying to figure it out. We got Joe Burrow. They don't want to take the ball out of his hands, and they shouldn't want to do that. But I think it's hard to I don't think you can really sit here and say it's this reason and this reason only. It really changes week in and week out.
I think it's a very good question, and there's a lot of different aspects to it.
Yeah.
The first and foremost I would say is that in today's NFL, the passing game is king. Explosive plays in the passing game. There's a very few select teams like the Niners, like the Rams, who have found success in a run game, a diverse run game, right? And every single one is delineated from that Shanahan style tree, right? Where you are running a lot of wide zone, a lot of duo, wham, traps. You're doing every type of run under the sun. You have a very diverse run scheme, and you built your team specifically in that way, in that wide zone style. They have not done that. And many of the teams in the NFL have tried to do that and have failed miserably without, Kevin O'Connell, Bobby Slowick, Sean McVay, and Kyle Shanahan, I would probably say are the four, right? So that's the first aspect is there's a very select few group of guys who can succeed. Bread and butter of your offense being just run game, largely focused, and a diverse, unique play action game. The passing game is just so much more valuable, and the Bengals are built this way. This is where the philosophy comes in. They're not going to be that team that runs the ball 20, 25 times a game, nor should they be. I think the other aspect is if you're discontent with where the number of rush attempts are, wait until they're winning a game in the third quarter.
Yes.
I bet you see another 8 to 10 rush attempts. And at the end of the game, we do the same thing where we always go through this every year where it's like, oh, well, the Bengals won by 15 points and they had 30 rush attempts. In games where they have 30 rush attempts, they're 5-0. They should run the ball over. And you run because you're winning. You pass because you're losing, right? Usually. And then that's why when we look at like, hey, are you a passing or a running team? We do neutral downs, not 2-minute drills, right? We don't look at 2-minute drills. We don't look at the last 5 minutes of the game when you're up 2 touchdowns, right? Because obviously you're going to run or pass the ball in those situations. Also, the strength of your team is the passing game. Your quarterback, your pass blocking offensive line that you've got, your litany of wide receivers and tight end weapons, your receiving backfield that you have, and Chase Brown, who's a weapon, and Zach Moss, who's even gotten into some of these screen actions and flat concepts that they've done recently. You are built to be a passing team. And that's what makes it tough, right? Because they're not going to be that team that tries to do 8 and 10-minute drives and play keep away and score 18 or 20 points and beat you with a stalwart defense. Your team is just not built that way. Mm-hmm. And that's a very early 2000s, late, 90s, 80s way of playing is, hey, we're going to score 20 points and we're going to win every game because we can play good defense and run the ball. That's just not the way a lot of teams, especially the Bengals, are built or play nowadays, with all of the offensive and defensive rules being the way they are for a variety of reasons. And maybe we can dive into like some very specific stuff on this later if you want, but there's just a lot of reasons of why, from how they're built to NFL philosophy right now to the advantages of being a strong passing team, and also, again, game script. It's going to feel a lot worse about how many rush attempts you have when you constantly are trying to play catch up, or you feel like every time you get the ball, you're in a 2-minute or a 4-minute drill and you need to be passing. That's going to inflate the numbers really weird. So it's always important to have that context in mind.
Let's get to the last one.
Yep. So it's going to be from Travis Schwaller saying, thoughts on Eric All so far? Blocking only tight end or see a mini Kittle in him?
What do you guys think? I mean, because
he took on Karlaftis the other day, man, like solo and stonewalled him, man. He did a good job. Love to see him in motion. Love to see him and aggressive as a blocker. I think there's still more to be had as a pass catcher. I think as he gets more comfortable coming off his injury, as he gets more comfortable in the offense, he's going to be able to play faster and be a bigger part of things. So I'm very impressed with how quickly he's come along and how quickly, like I said, he's top 2 in snaps among all the tight ends that we had. I think when we started the season with Drew Sample and Mike Gesicki, we thought he might be tight end 3 or 4 behind Tanner Hudson and maybe not playing as much. That's not the case.
Yeah, I love what we've seen from him so far. Obviously, we knew he was going to leave some desire to be in the passing game. We knew that's what he was going to work on, but we also know he's coming off of an ACL injury. It's going to be a lot harder to get in the open field and make people miss and create separation doing that stuff to where it is like, I can just sit here and I can just block better than you. You know, like, and that's what they're doing with him right now. They're having a role for him. He's executing the role like we talked about Daijhan Anthony earlier, and he's taking advantage of his opportunity. And that's all we can ask for right now. He's been on the field way more than I ever imagined he would be through the first 2 weeks, but it's hard to take him off the field. We can continue to block as well if you have at that position. It's the same reason Drew Sample has rarely left the field the last few years. It's because he sits here, he does the dirty work, and he helps make an impact even when he's not catching the ball. So now if Eric All can do that, but still be a better receiving threat than Drew Sample, then the offense just becomes that much better.
Beautiful. All right, guys. Well, that does it for today's State of the Jungle. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Once again, as always, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe for more content. Once again, Malik will be back on. He was out today. He was a game time decision, but he was out today. He'll be back for the post-game show as always. And we've got our the sit down with Malik Wright every single day, and we'll be back with that tomorrow as well as Friday. So make sure you guys like this video, subscribe for more